Hey there, I am back. Today I'm going to play the urban fantasy visual novel Changeling. So this is one of a bundle of games that I purchased back in June. And once I got my Windows computer on my birthday, January 13th of this year, I decided, hey, I can stream stuff now. I'm going to stream that entire bundle of approximately like over 1,000 items. So I'm on page 259. Changeling is my next game, so let's go. Urban fantasy, I like that. I love urban fantasy, and a visual novel sounds like a great thing. Let's go ahead and do a new game. So it looks like, oops, you know what? I'm not sure where this game is gonna go. Let's go up here, and yes, that is what my screen looks like. There, oh, I'm like probably making people dizzy. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I will be Nora, and my last name, so I'll be Nora Lewis. And now my story begins. When I was little, I dreamed of being carried away to a far-off land. It was a recurring dream of flying through the air, surrounded by softly singing voices. Oh, this is cool. Back then, I read book after book of old fairy tales in my grandmother's study, the kind where good children didn't always make it out of that dark swamp unscathed, and sometimes the goblins won. All right, so this over here, this background graphic, I do love this art, by the way. I like this. I like everything about it. I like where they're putting the text and how they're... Oh, and I did notice there are links down here. Let's see, back, save, load, skip, auto menu. Okay. So basically, here's what's up with the changelings. When the world was young and the boundaries between the natural and supernatural were less distinct, the Fae were much more widespread than they are in modern times. They dwelt in every forest, in every tree or stone, and under every hill. They were secretive and shy, but even if they stayed out of sight, they were never far from where humans were. Before mortals grew away from nature, fairies always lingered near to watch them. Most fairies had a great love for humans, especially human children. Though their lives were short, their souls were like brilliant flames that burned out all too quickly, and like moths to candles, the Fae were drawn to those flames. They would wait until night to sneak through an open window or slip through any crack in search of unguarded human children. When they found them defenseless and unprotected, the fairies would carry these babies to the realm of Fae in hopes of rejuvenating their own frail race with the vibrant fire of human life force. And in the place of the stolen baby, they would have a fairy child disguised with fairy glamour. These children were called changelings. I've actually been thinking about this, and I mentioned it in some of the streams where I'm doing interactive storytelling. I don't know how to stream them. I suppose I could look and see what other people do. When I first started streaming this bundle of games, there was a Twine game that I really liked. It was called Palm Simulator 9000. I do suggest to people that are interested in different voices. This particular story had to do with an immigrant to our country, and it also included the ability to turn into different animals and different powers that people had, and then it goes from there. So Palm Simulator 9000. But anyway, I read through all of it, and I actually did 2 endings, because the first ending was obviously the wrong ending and it came too quickly. So I read through everything, and that was a 2.5-hour stream of me just reading. And what's ironic is I never liked to read aloud to like my kids, because I would get bored and my throat would get tired. But somehow being on a stream, I was able to say that to read that for 2.5 hours. But anyway, that's not how I want to approach interactive storytelling. I just played one called One Night Stand, and I didn't read absolutely everything, or I think I didn't. That one was actually like not very verbal, which was good. Well, I mean, it was very verbal, but it was shorter than this type of stuff. So I am reading what the changelings are, but I don't know how to do this, and if people want to help me know, so I'll just do my thing. I know about changelings. So, you know, during the day, I would run through the forest by our house and pretend the stories were real. Every tree was a sentinel watching over me, and rustling leaves were the sweet whispers of fairies coaxing me further and further from the house. I will say this writing is already superior to many of the things that I've read of late. Then it all crumbled. The trees and games had to be left behind. Books were left to gather dust on shelves, and dreams were left to fade into memory. Years passed, and all that remained were the distant games and pretend play of childhood. Back then, I didn't know that real fairy tales were darker than anything I could possibly have dreamed up on my own. Okay, chapter 1. Okay, we nearly reached the new house. So, I love the art. I was eager to get out of the cramped car and see the new place. The long road trip wasn't agreeing with me, but I couldn't complain too much. After 5 years in a city I hated, we were finally moving back to Pine Hollow, the place where I grew up. That alone was enough to keep my sanity intact during the tense trip back. There's some vaguely good-ish, for the situation, there's some good music here. I'm trying to see how loud I can make it before it's annoying. Annoying in the sense to stream it without having to scream above the music. Unfortunately, the reason behind the move wasn't fantastic. Grandpa was ill again, and this time was under strict orders to take it easy. Since he had to avoid stress, he needed Dad's help with his business. Of course, he didn't think so, but Grandma was adamant, get help or retire. So we were on our way back so Dad could take over, in theory anyway, not that Grandpa would let him. In any case, Dad wasn't too happy about leaving his current job or our house in the city behind, much less moving back across state lines to our previous home. I was, though. I missed Grandma and Grandpa. I missed the trees and the looming embrace of the mountains that made Pine Hollow feel enclosed and protected. I missed my best friend. What I wouldn't miss was the stifling humidity of the city, the constant smell of hot rubber and car exhaust, not to mention the lack of stars and the way rain made everything smell like rust instead of warmer. It wasn't all terrible. The parks were pretty, and being nearer to the water had been fun. School hadn't been awful. I was hardly the loner girl skulking in the corners. I'd had friends, and I would miss them. But Allie wasn't just a friend. She was practically family. No one in the city could compare with that. And the city had never felt like home. I smiled slightly as the scenery beyond the car windows became more and more familiar. My tiredness faded to excitement. So Spencer, who's Spencer? What's up with Spencer? Can I click on this? Nope. Oops. Wait, Spencer. Uh-oh. There is actually a way to go backward. Yeah, so here's a really cool feature of this game. Novel, excuse me. The really cool feature is that the roller ball on my mouse can go forward or backward. So if you miss something and you've pressed enter because you were zoning out or whatever, or you clicked on the wrong thing like I did, you can actually get back using the roller ball. So that is sweet. This new house isn't that far from the old one, is it? Mom, they're only a few miles apart. This one's in a different neighborhood, though. Dad, lots of trees, very wooded. I think you two will really like it after we get settled in. I guess Spencer is my brother. Dad said that, but from the look on Spencer's face, I didn't think it was true. Not for him, anyway. Dad pointed to a small forested mountain a few miles ahead. Dad says, the neighborhood is nestled right at the foot there and winds up the slope. It feels rural, but it's within walking distance of the town square. I was glad that it didn't look like much development had happened in the years we'd been gone. In fact, it didn't look like much had changed at all. Nora says, I am Nora. So much forest, I almost forgot what it was like. Spencer says it looks easy to get lost in. Da da da. Da da da. Hold on, the music's a little loud. All right. I gave him a sharp look and found him staring at me in that disquieting way he'd picked up over the last few years. What's up with you, Spencer? He was already trying to start a fight about that. I quickly looked away, unwilling to give him the satisfaction. Another thing I missed was me and Spencer being close, like everyone seemed to think twins ought to be. But I didn't think that just moving back to Pine Hollow was going to fix that, though, not with jabs like that aimed at me. Let it go already. Aw, me and my twin? Mom says no one is going to get lost. Okay, Mom. And I want you both to give me your word you'll be careful in the forest. I don't want to have to ban you from hiking. Ugh, now Mom was starting to... I slumped back in the seat watching the kaleidoscope of fall colors slide past. This is really cool. Like, this seems like young adult fiction so far, and I really like that. I'd expected that issue to be brought up now that we were moving back, but I hadn't expected to start getting lectured before we even reached the new house. Dad says, the realtor said there are trails, and Mom said, but you know that probably means animal trails, not actual hiking trails. It can be dangerous if you aren't careful. What? Mom, you're being a little... Is this town really that small to not have hiking trails? Nora, we're not little kids anymore. That is obviously true. We are obviously like max young, 8th grade. We're definitely in high school. Dad says there are lots of coyotes here and cougars, even bears. There's also a pretty deep ravine in the woods behind the house, from what I understand. Mom says we just want to make sure everyone stays safe. Now that we're back, we don't want... Nora says, geez, it's been 5 years. I couldn't entirely blame everyone for their uneasiness about the whole thing. Man, look at the sky. And it works really well with the colors and graphics of this thing. Like, I love that. That was a surprise for sure. I couldn't entirely blame everyone for their uneasiness about the whole thing. The disappearance 5 years ago. Ooh, the disappearance. My disappearance. Mine, Nora Lewis's, 5 years ago was the reason we moved in the first place. Not just the disappearance itself, though I'd been gone for more than a week, and that had definitely caused some trauma. But there was the issue of how I just showed back up, and the other things that happened around that time. 5 years later, and my family was still shadowed by the repercussions of what had happened back then. Of course I wanted them to move on. Everything back then had been my fault. Not just the drama the family had endured as a whole, but also what had happened to Spencer. Those weren't wounds that could just heal overnight. Not the emotional ones, not the physical ones, and definitely not the one inflicted on our relationship. And no amount of apologizing had ever helped. Dad turned onto a quiet street that wound its way up into the trees. A few rooftops poked through the foliage. It was a great neighborhood that reminded me a little of where we'd lived before. The sweetness of nostalgia helped wash away some of the lingering bitterness from the previous conversation. I loved the place from the moment we turned onto the street and passed over a trickling creek that vanished into the woods. Down at the foot of the mountain, and within walking distance of the houses, was the main street of the town, filled with little shops and restaurants. But the neighborhood, hidden behind a thick wall of trees and curled around the mountainside, felt secluded and quiet. It was beautiful and perfect. I do really like the art style of this game. I can just feel the scene. Like this is like something that I could see in my own life in my own town. So Mom seems to be kind of annoying. Nora, go check the boxes up in your room to make sure they put the right ones there. I'll let you unpack your things first, then I want you downstairs to help in the kitchen. Dad's like, Spencer, same for you. Movers had already arranged most of the furniture in the house under Grandma's supervision, but the boxes with the smaller items and personal belongings still needed unpacking. I am ending up reading all this. I like how the music changed. I don't know if that's like too able to hear. Let me see if it can be heard a little better. I mean, that's appropriate. The music had changed. So this is our safe kitchen in our house. Since she had to take care of Grandpa couldn't do much more than tell them where to put the furniture and try to get the basics set up for us. We still had a ton of work to do. Mom immediately busied herself trying to hang curtains and make the house look lived in, and Dad started ripping into the boxes in the family room. Spencer vanished upstairs. I left Mom in the kitchen and went to take a look at the rest of the downstairs. And I'm like, oh, this house is really great. Glad you like it, honey. It wasn't new, but had been renovated inside. It looked modern and new, but still felt old and full of memories and someone else's history. And I say, I love it already. My bedroom was right next to Spencer's. The only thing separating them was a small shared bathroom. That was going to be so much fun. He tended to act like any intrusions into his personal space was a huge affront, so I had to walk on eggshells if I didn't want to fight with him. I could only begin to imagine his whining about having to share counter space with all my icky girl things like a hairbrush and hand lotion. The horror. That aside, my room was pretty nice. It was bright and airy, and I loved seeing my things already put exactly where I'd have put them anyway. It looks like Grandma even got my bed ready. All I had to do was unpack the rest of my personal stuff, and I started with my school things, pulling the tape off one box to get at what was inside. Suddenly, the door to my side of the bathroom burst open. Spencer stalked in, dropping a dusty box on my clean bedspread. He could have at least knocked. Spencer said, "They gave me one of yours." And I say, oh, to myself, don't pick a fight, but just stay calm. I moved the box to the floor without saying anything. Spencer started to leave. I said to him, hang on, let me make sure I don't have any of yours. Hopefully he didn't make a habit of bursting in, but being my twin brother didn't mean he got to invade my privacy whenever he wanted, especially since he'd have had an aneurysm if I had slammed into his room that way. I quickly sorted through the boxes to see if any of his were lurking in my room. Sure enough, I found one with his name clearly scrawled on the top. Here, I think this one has some of your clothes. I nudged the box toward him with my foot. He scowled at me before picking it up and stalking back to his room. And the door on his side of the bathroom slammed shut. That was cool how they did the slamming. That's a nice little detail. A little cutesy. But yeah, you're welcome. It felt like every interaction with him was like that lately. It was worse than ever, actually. But then he wasn't likely to forget his negative memories of Pine Hollow soon, and I was pretty sure he was just annoyed by the fact that I was happy to be back, which meant taking it out on me, of course. He'd never loved this place the way I had anyway, so he wasn't really inclined to overlook the bad memories in the first place. I sighed and continued pulling things out of boxes. Patience. It was just hard to have all this stuff stirred up again. I mean, even if I accepted responsibility for what happened back then, I didn't think it meant I also had to sentence myself to guilt and misery forever. Wow, you know what? That is actually a super great sentence. Even if I accepted responsibility for what happened, I didn't think it meant I also had to sentence myself to guilt and misery forever. It's true. Not for something that had happened when I was 12, something I couldn't even remember. I left my boxes on the floor and went to peer out the window. I pressed my head against glass, watching the trees sway slightly in the fall breeze. Let's see how the music changed, actually. Hold on. Is that the same one that was in the kitchen? The music is a little too, like, anime or Japanese RPG or I don't know. That's okay, though. It was probably stupid to say I felt more complete in this town. At a glance, it looked like dozens of others you could find scattered through the area. It was beautiful and sunny sometimes, and others it was really eerie. Cool. I like the art, once again. There were days when the clouds hung low over the mountains. The fog was super thick through the trees, and you could almost imagine it was haunted. The truth was that I felt I'd lost something in this place 5 years ago. Maybe I was only happy to be here because I felt that now I had the chance to get it back. I left the window and went back to unpacking before Mom started yelling at me to come join the battle of bubble wrapping the kitchenware. In any case, I was being annoyingly sentimental. Pine Hollow was special to me, maybe, but it wasn't special in general. It was one of those little towns with more urban legends than any reasonable person could count. Hundreds of stories about creepy happenings in the woods, and for every one of them, no matter how unlikely, there were dozens of people willing to believe it. And that's probably why people were so quick to leap on the oddities of my disappearances. They weren't really even that odd. At least I didn't think so. The rational public wrote them off as strange but explainable. I got lost, then got unlost. Big deal. Though to be fair, the first time it happened I was 9, and when I got unlost I was also unhurt, even after 10 days in the woods alone. It was definitely lucky I got home safely. It wasn't supernatural, not like some people apparently insisted. It was just the amnesia that caught people off guard, I think. I couldn't remember a thing that happened while I was missing. I still couldn't. But psychogenic amnesia was a thing. What kid would want to remember being terrified in the woods for a week and a half? Not me, clearly. I started filling my closet with clothes and carefully lined up my shoes and boots. I should totally get a new pair to celebrate being home. I left the closet and began arranging my study things on the desk. We'd be starting back to school on Monday after an inevitably busy weekend. The same private school we'd gone to before we left. That was the only thing I had mixed feelings about. There had just been such a fuss about my last disappearance, the one when I was 12. Okay, so I'm 17. All right. That one had been the real catalyst for everything. That had been when everything just broke. Ooh, look at, oh, I love this art. Did the music change? Hold on. Silence. Interesting. Wonder if it'll start when I've read some. I'd been missing for nearly 2 full weeks. The newspapers were running dramatic and hopeless stories. There was speculation about whether I was a runaway or if it was a ploy for attention. After all, it had happened to me before. There were search parties out every day looking for any sign of me. My parents were heartbroken again. Spencer was out with a search party one evening and got separated from them. They heard his scream and feared the worst, but he ran out of the woods a short time later in hysterics, clutching at one of his eyes. Then I walked out after him in a daze, but unharmed. They never found anything wrong with his eye. He lost the vision in it, but no one knew the reason. He was saying a lot of crazy things at the time. No one knew if he'd hit his head or had maybe gotten attacked by a stray cougar. And again, I didn't remember a thing. There was a lot of public interest in the incident due to the fact that it was the second one involving our family, and me specifically. And again, I didn't remember a thing. There was a lot of public interest in the incident due to the fact that it was the second one involving our family, and me specifically. People loved mysteries, and I had given them one. If I wasn't making it up, and I wasn't, then what sort of trauma could give me amnesia twice? No one could do anything but speculate endlessly. My family tried to just get on with life, but it hadn't been easy, more like impossible. There had just been too much stupid speculation and skepticism. At school, there were rumors that we'd both done the whole thing for attention, and Spencer's injury was fake, that he had a psychotic episode and tried to kill me. It was a mess, and so we just left. Why am I even thinking about this again? I shook off all those old negative thoughts. It was years ago. People had forgotten. Everything was going to be fine. I stacked the empty boxes off to the side. On the opposite side of the room, I set up my painting things. The cabinet for my art supplies was nearby, and I quickly stacked everything inside. The sunny room was going to be perfect for painting. It even faced north. I love that they remembered that when they picked this room for me. Mom says, "Nora, are you finished yet?" And I said, "I'm nearly done. Give me a few more minutes." I turned my attention to my small library of old books. I had all the classics, all used and worn and beautiful, and of course there was lots of Shakespeare. It only took a few minutes to get the books on the shelves. I've tried to organize them properly tomorrow. Once I was finished unpacking, I gave my room a satisfied once-over before heading downstairs to help Mom unpack the kitchen. So, I kind of want to finish chapter 1, but this is going on like a while. I don't know how many chapters there are. But what I'd like to say is I really like this. I think the writing is pretty good. It gets a little cheesy with the dialogue and some of the shorter stuff, but the descriptive stuff is really well written. I like that this is basically seeming to be young adult fiction. I think that that's a very valid thing to go after as far as an audience. I do want to get to the supernatural stuff. I guess I will keep reading a little bit longer. I like maybe to get to the end of chapter 1. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'll read a little bit more and see where it goes. So Nora says, "What should I do with the boxes in my room?" And Mom says, "We'll have to figure out what the recycling pickup schedule is so we can crush them and set them out." Mom says, "For now, just leave them." And I said, "Okay. Meanwhile, can you set those out on the back porch?" She motioned to a few large empty flower pots near the table. "No problem. When you're back, I have a few things for you to take to the basement." "Yay. Come on, hurry it up." "Aye, Captain." I hefted the stack of pots and managed to wobble my way to the back door with them. Navigating the door handle was a bit interesting, but I managed to get outside without breaking anything. I set them down near one of the brick columns and looked across the overgrown backyard. Something interesting caught my eye, and I hopped off the porch to investigate. At the back, in a little hollowed-out area near the fence, was a large ring of white mushrooms with round caps. A fairy ring. I smiled as I crouched down and poked one of them. We'd had one at our last house, too. Dad had tried everything to get rid of it, but it was very persistent. No matter what he treated it with, it always came back. He wouldn't be happy about it, but for some reason, I liked having it there. I smiled slightly, remember playing with Spencer in our previous backyard. We'd play tag, and whoever made it inside the circle first would be safe. Or we'd lay inside it and pretend we could see the fairies dancing on the mushroom tops or playing in the tree branches. I took a long, deep breath, and I said to myself, "I'm so glad to be back." And then question mark, "What are you doing out here?" I sighed and stood carefully brushing off my jeans. "Oh, must have been Spencer. Why does he always have to sound so angry?" "Mom has more work for you to do. You know, if you have time between daydreaming and communing with nature." I said, "Is it possible for you to speak to me like I'm a human being?" "It would be if I was sure you were a human being." I hated the way he always said things like that with a completely straight face. "Ha ha, very amusing. I assure you that sisters are indeed human. Brothers, however, I'm not sure about." Normally one would assume he hadn't meant it literally, but I can never tell with him. "Spencer's, just get back inside." As he turned away, he snapped a foot out, kicking over a few of the mushrooms. Okay, here's my first choice points. I didn't know if that would happen. I think I'm gonna get angry. I couldn't help but get angry. It was probably petty of me, but he always did this kind of thing. I was so tired of it. I grabbed his arm, holding it tightly when he tried to pull away. Why do you always have to do things like that? Who cares? They're just mushrooms. What's your problem? You are. You don't always have to lash out at things just because I like them. He opened his mouth as if to respond, but didn't quite get it out. What are you two doing out here? Quit fighting and get back in here and help. I don't know if there's music. I'm not sure I like this music for this particular scene. I'm starting to get more and more annoyed by the music part, though, to be honest. It's very JRPG. What are you two doing out there? Quit fighting and get back in here and help. Spencer yanked his arm out of my grasp, narrowing his eyes. Don't touch me. His angry hiss echoed in my head as I watched him stalk back inside. I looked down at the crumbled mushrooms lying in broken bits on the grass. They'd grow back. It was stupid to care. I hated seeing something pretty messed up for a stupid reason. I hated that he had to ruin everything like some kind of creepy assassin of joy. I shoved my hands in my pockets and headed back inside. There was a quiet rustle of dried leaves behind me, and I glanced back. There was nothing there. Probably a squirrel or something. Casting one last glance at the fairy ring, I stepped back into the kitchen, prepared for a list of chores to complete before dinner. I was just glad Dad was already talking about ordering pizza instead of trying to cook. That night I had a vivid dream. In it was the sense I was looking for something, and that I had to find my way home. There were tall trees draped in emerald moss and groping branches that reached to the sun. There was faint singing, childish voices whose words I couldn't make out. It was a dream that left the taste and smell of warm, wet earth in my mouth as I woke. The smell quickly faded and was replaced by that of bacon and eggs as sunlight warmed my eyelids, beckoning me to wake up. All right. I rolled over and snuggled deep in my blankets. Mom was already up. I could hear her downstairs talking to Dad as she cooked breakfast. The prickle of sunlight against my eyelids coaxed me out of sleep and warmed my face. Nora, I know you want to sleep in, but we still have a lot of unpacking to do. I'm up. Sort of. The last remnants of my dream faded as I staggered out of bed into my closet to rummage for something to wear. It was a dream I'd had many times, though not for a while. With that sense of having to get home, I assumed it was a dream from when I'd gotten lost in the woods, from when I'd gotten spirited away, as my grandmother always called it. Being back must have been dredging up some of the old feelings from back then. I glanced toward my half-open curtains. It looks a bit chilly this morning. I should probably find something warm. This far north, it always felt like summer simply stopped abruptly, giving way to instant autumn. Yesterday, when we had arrived, it had been sunny with a hint of chill, but I was betting the mornings were pretty cold. Spencer busts in, apparently. Hey, Mom says to stop fooling around and get your butt downstairs. Nearly jumped out of my skin when he just walked into my room. In response, I snatched a stray sock and threw it his way. I'm getting dressed, you creep. Then shut the door. Fine. I marched across the room to slam the door in Spencer's face. I threw my clothes on and wrinkled my curly hair into some semblance of a ponytail. Not exactly the height of stylishness, but we still had unpacking to do, and Mom could be a slave driver. Function over fashion or whatever. I got downstairs in time to see Mom setting out the plates. First breakfast in the new house. Wow, you really went all out. Bacon, eggs, even pancakes, and glorious, glorious coffee. Dad walked by munching on something, and Mom scowled at him. Sit at the table if you want to eat. Too busy. He reached for another piece of bacon, but she slapped his hand. He just grinned at her. As soon as she turned away, he grabbed the bacon and shoved it in his mouth, then fled the room. I rolled my eyes at them and was about to sit when Mom yanked my breakfast away ruthlessly. What? Uh-oh. She pointed to several garbage bags in a box by the door. Uh-oh. You said you'd take them out last night and didn't. The bags go to the bins out front and the box goes to the tool shed out back. Both of them before breakfast. Mom, I'm hungry. I crave sustenance. I made sad whining noises and pawed at her for my plate. She wasn't She wasn't buying it. Okay. Spencer swung by the table and took my plate out of her hands, snatching a slice of bacon off it and shoving it in his mouth. Like father, like son. Thanks, Mom. Looks delicious. That's mine, just so you know. He sidled past me, holding the plate just out of reach. There's plenty of food. Take the trash out, then you can eat. You are so mean, all of you. It was useless to argue. I already knew that. I sighed and trudged to the door, fumbling with a pair of flip-flops before picking my poison and heading out. Okay, some more interaction. I'll take the box to the backyard because maybe I'll see the fairy ring again. I hope you know that this is cruel and unusual punishment. It's not punishment, just fulfilling obligations. Cruel. I barely got the last word in before the door slammed shut. She was big about obligations and responsibilities, but it wasn't too bad, I guess. Dad was way worse. I wrangled the box back to the tool shed at the far corner of the backyard. What's even in this thing? It must have been tools and stuff since it was heading to the shed. Mom should seriously just get rid of them anyway. Dad was a menace with anything sharp or connected to a power source. He was a businessman to the core, but a handyman, not so much. Disaster always ensued the moment he got his hands on tools. I waded through the weeds to the tool shed, noting that all the flower beds were still full of wilted bulbs. It needed some major cleanup. I glanced at the fairy ring when I passed it. New mushrooms had already popped up to replace the ones Spencer kicked over. It always impressed me how fast those things could grow. I smiled to myself. The shed was bolted shut, and I wondered if anyone had even tried to open it yet. If there are spiders in there, I will definitely scream. I set the box down and looked all around the bolt to check for creepy crawlies, especially those huge, intimidating orb weavers. A door slammed at the next house over. I glanced over instinctively, but of course the privacy fence blocked my view. Regardless, it was impossible to avoid eavesdropping on what seemed to be two young guys talking. Did you have to drag me out of bed so early for this? I was up half the night. You're always up half the night. Come on, exercise is good for you, and you asked me to help you with this. I know. Two guys for sure. One had a deep, warm voice. The other just sounded half asleep. I smiled as I finally slid the bolt over and shoved the door open. Sounded like two high schoolers, maybe around my age. I quickly dropped the box off to one side and stepped out of the shed before some gross, creepy Carly got on me. You know, with your skills, you should be great at this, so I'm not going to take it easy on you. Hey, careful. There's no way I'm a match for your crazy. Just catch. Ugh. Ooh. Something happened. I wasn't quite sure what had just happened. I just stepped out of the shed, and suddenly I was on the ground seeing stars and trying to figure out what had just bounced off my head. It had looked vaguely football-shaped, but who the heck throws like that? Oh my God, are you okay? I blinked rapidly and looked around. Okay, now I'm hearing voices descend from the sky. I probably have brain damage. Up here. Oh, right. Someone was peering at me over the top of the wooden fence. Don't move, okay? I'm coming over. Lots of rustling and suspicious movements later, and a huge dark-haired guy swung over a tree branch and into my yard. Wow. Maybe it was just a blurred vision, but he was quite good-looking. Before I knew it, Mr. Tall, Dark, and Attractive was kneeling over me with a worried look on his face. I am so sorry. I didn't realize anyone would be back here, and well, my friend was supposed to catch that. He, missed. Are you okay? I felt hands on my face as the boy tried to brush my bangs aside to get a look at my forehead. My cheeks instantly heated up. I made a feeble attempt to push his hands away as they grazed the painful bump forming. I'm fine, seriously. I mean, you have a really good arm, but the stars and little birdies are fading, so I think I'll be fine. He gave me a really sweet, apologetic smile. This is definitely not how I planned to meet the new neighbors. He stood and offered me a hand, which I took to pull myself up. Well, there are worse ways to make an unforgettable first impression. Then again, given the size of the lump on my head, I may well forget this whole thing in a few minutes anyway. I'm kidding. He breathed an almost comical sigh of relief. Short of driving my car into your house, I can't imagine how this could get much worse. I'm Danny, by the way. And are you really okay? Nora. Nice to meet you. And yes, I suspect the brain damage will be minimal. I'm really, really sorry. Hello, everything okay over there? Another head popped over the fence, this one belonging to a pale purple-haired boy, definitely the sleepyhead. Oh, hello there. This is my friend Elliot, though most people just call him Mozzie. Mozzie? He was supposed to catch that. I smirked up at the boy dangling over the fence. Good job. He returned the smirk with a silly grin. Hey, playing catch with the quarterback this morning was not my idea. I am sorry, though. You have a huge bump on your head. I touched my forehead and winced. Yeah, that might need some ice. With luck, it'll get me out of helping unpack the kitchen. They both laughed. Well, we try to be helpful. Next time, could you just pretend to bounce a ball off my head? I'm really, really sorry. I said it's okay. I still feel bad, though. It's fine. I'll live with minimal brain damage. Most likely. We both looked at the purple-haired guy who was still peering down at us from the fence. So, not to interrupt, but I was just wondering. I mean, I guess you'll be starting school around here soon. Yeah, on Monday. We're both seniors at Stone Circle Academy. You? Oh, cool. My brother and I are seniors too. We'll be starting there on Monday. That's where we went before we moved. Nice. Used to live here? A few years ago, yeah. We're moving back to be closer to my grandparents. Gotcha. So you and your brother are in the same grade. Twins. You lucked out, though. I'm the good one. Spencer's evil. What the hell, Nora? You're supposed to be helping out, not flirting with the locals. Ah, yes. Great timing as always. Finish up there and get back inside. Mom's looking for you. I glared at the house as Spencer's head of auburn curls vanished back into the kitchen. See? Evil. Sorry to interrupt your unpacking with flirting, especially when it entails nearly knocking you unconscious. I'll make it up to you sometime. It's not a big deal, though I wouldn't object if you aimed for my brother's head next time instead. I mean, since you like being so helpful. I'll try. It was nice to meet you. Elliot, right? Yep, I guess I'll see you on Monday. Yeah. He vanished behind the fence again, leaving me alone with Danny. Mind if I go through the gate on my way out? Yeah, no problem. I showed him the way, then went back inside for an ice pack and breakfast. Mom spent a few minutes fussing over my head before setting my plate down in front of me and giving me the long list of chores I had to complete. It was going to be a long, long day. Chapter 2. Okay, so nothing urban fantasy-ish happened yet, I guess, except for the fairy ring. So chapter 2, how about I just do this? I'll just stop now. This does seem to be like more geared toward young adult fiction type stuff, a young adult audience. But I'm curious what will happen. I definitely do not like the JRPG music. I'm not sure. I don't remember. I don't remember if the like intro music was different than that, but it started to get a little grating. The writing was good. Um, I love the graphics. I love the graphics. Very very nice integration of like font and graphic design and the actual pictures and just really pretty game. So, all in all, Changeling, a visual novel, I would definitely recommend for people that are into reading an urban fantasy story about apparently a changeling, a fairy changeling. So, I have streamed this game now. Thank you.